Welcome to this APC Q&A practice focusing on the RICS Rules of Conduct that were updated in February 2022.
The following questions and model answers are really designed to cover this area in detail to help candidates feel better prepared for their final assessment interview. So without further ado, let's go straight into the Q&A practice. The first question we'll take a look at is, what are the new rules of conduct? And to address this, we would need to reference rule number 1, which is members and firms must be honest, act with integrity, and comply with their professional obligations, including obligations to the RICS. Rule number 2 is where members and firms must maintain their professional competence and ensure that services are provided by competent individuals who have the necessary expertise. Rule number 3 is where members and firms must provide good quality and diligent service. Rule number 4 is where members and firms must treat others with respect and encourage diversity and inclusion. And rule number 5 is where members and firms must act in the public's interest, to take responsibility for their actions and act to prevent harm and maintain public confidence in the profession. We may also receive a question asking us to explain our understanding of the rules of conduct in depth. And to address this for rule number 1, we could say that having reviewed the example behaviours in adhering to rule number 1, RICS members and firms should not allow themselves to be influenced improperly through the acceptance of work referrals, gifts or hospitality. Members and firms must also be sure to identify conflicts of interest and not provide services or advice where these conflicts of interest occur. This could be a scenario where I have reduced impartiality due to an existing relationship. For example, being friends with a main contractor who has submitted a tender would form a conflict of interest. We may also be asked, why did the previous rules of conduct change? And again, to address this, we would need to reference that the previous rules had been in place since 2007. Following the consultation with RICS members, firms and members of the public, the majority voted in favour of replacing the existing rules. This was to provide a single document to enable greater clarity for RICS members and firms, and it's also there to provide a clearer focus on example behaviours, understanding evolving technology and tackling climate change. We may also be asked to provide an overview on our understanding of the changes, and to address this we could say that the Rules of Conduct October 2021 Global Practice Statement will now overhaul the previous separate documents, which are the Rules of Conduct for Members and Firms and the Global Professional and Ethical Standards. Appendix A of the Rules of Conduct now contains the professional obligations of members and firms. We may also receive a follow-on question checking our understanding of the professional obligations of members. And to address this, we would need to say that members must comply with the CPD requirements set by the RICS, which requires 20 hours of CPD for each calendar year. Members must cooperate with the RICS, and members must promptly provide all information reasonably requested by the Standards and Regulations Board or those acting on their behalf. We may also receive a question on the professional obligations for firms, and to address this we would need to say that firms must publish a complaints handling procedure, which includes an alternative dispute resolution process. Firms must ensure that all previous and current professional work is covered by adequate professional indemnity cover. Firms with a sole principal must make arrangements for their professional work to continue in the event of their incapacity, death or absence or inability to work. Firms must cooperate with the RICS. Firms must promptly provide all information reasonably requested by the RICS. Firms must display on their business literature in accordance with RICS published policy on designations, and firms must report to the RICS any matter they are required to report under the rules for the registration of firms. Why does the RICS have rules of conduct? And to address this, we could say that this is to provide a framework that we can all work to, and so the client knows he is getting a set level of service. As well as being an important tool for the institution, the rules of conduct are also a useful professional guide for individual institution members. Look, if you're finding this video useful so far and you're serious about passing your APC, we put together a question and answers revision guidebook, and this will save countless hours compiling revision notes and contains over 1,000 questions and answers based on real-life APC interviews. It also contains example submission documents and explained step-by-step how to complete the APC. Along with the step-by-step guide, there is also a free APC diary template, along with revision mind maps on the RICS hot topics to support your revision. The study guide has helped around 90% of my colleagues pass their APC first time, and I really hope you find this a useful resource when preparing for your APC. Grab it now using the link in the description below. The next question we'll take a look at is, please give us some examples on matters you may refer to using the RICS ethics decision tree. And to address this, we could reference receiving gifts in a professional capacity, matters relating to equal opportunities, whistleblowing, copyright and ownership, conflicts of interest, charitable donations, and attendance at hospitality events. The next question we'll take a look at is what steps would you need to take when setting up in practice? And to address this, we would firstly reference that we would need to inform the RICS that we were registering as a regulated practice. We would need to appoint a contact officer. We would need to register with the RICS for regulation. We would need to arrange professional indemnity insurance. We would also need to set up a client account for the handling of clients' money. We would need to set up a complaints handling procedure and set up the arrangements for staff training and CPD. We may also receive a question on our understanding of the processes for the handling of clients' money, and to address this we would need to say that clients must always have access to funds, client money must be kept separate and clearly identifiable, we must include client in the account name, any interest on the account must be agreed in principle with the client, we must maintain a client ledger on the running balance of any transactions, we should agree the terms and advise the client on the bank details, and the client account must never go into an overdrawn position. We may receive a question on our understanding of the RICS 5 principles of better regulation, and to address this we would need to reference proportionality, accountability, consistency, targeting and transparency. The next question we'll take a look at is what sort of information do registered firms have to send to the RICS annually? We would need to say that this is called an annual return and done online, and failure to do so can lead to a fixed penalty. This should report on the types of business and staffing, the nature of the clients, any training provisions, complaints handling procedures, details and records, PI insurance details, and whether the firm holds any clients' money. We may also receive a question checking our understanding of the components of a complaints handling procedure, and to address this we could say that the RICS provides a model form, and this must include a redress mechanism. Details should be issued to the client within the terms of business, and the process must be clear, quick, transparent, impartial and free of charge. The names and contact details of the nominated investigating person must be stated. The complaint must be investigated within 28 days, and the process must have 2 stages as a minimum. All complaints, their progress and outcomes must be recorded. We also need to note the requirement to advise PI insurers of a complaint immediately. The process must have 2 stages as a minimum, with the first stage of the process where the complaint is considered by a senior member of the firm or the designated complaints handler. If the complaint is not resolved, during the second stage, the complaint must then be referred to an independent third party with the authority to award redress. We may receive a question checking our understanding of the term professional indemnity insurance. And the purpose of professional indemnity insurance is to provide financial cover in the event that a client suffers financial loss as a result of breach of professional duty, for example neglect, errors or omissions. The benefits of cover are that the professional is protected from any financial loss, and this means that they do not have to meet the claim from their own assets and resources. We may also receive a follow-on question asking on what basis should professional indemnity cover be underwritten, and this should be provided on a claims-made basis. A claims-made basis means that the insurance policy that is in place at the time the breach is discovered is a policy that is to provide the indemnity. We may also receive a question on our understanding of the Merit versus BAB case, and this is a famous piece of case law in 2001 where BAB had carried out a valuation as an employee of a company for a house purchased by Merit. The valuation was later found to be negligent. However, because the original company no longer existed, the court ruled that Merit could pursue the individual for the losses. The significance of this case was that it brought into light that professional employees were vulnerable to claims brought directly against them for advice given on behalf of their employers. This really highlights the importance of run-off cover. Professional individuals and firms must ensure that run-off cover is in place. Individuals should ensure that their ex-company maintains this cover on their behalf. We may receive a follow-on question checking our understanding of the duration of which run-off cover should be in place. And to address this, we would need to say that this really depends on the type of contracts the professional has been involved with. For contracts executed underhand, the run-off cover should be in place for 6 years, whereas if contracts have been executed as a deed, then cover must be in place for 12 years. The requirements regarding PI by the RICS are that the cover must be on each and every claims basis, as opposed to in the aggregate. The RICS does provide a minimum standard wording. This sets out the minimum levels of indemnity and the maximum levels of uninsured excess. As we've mentioned, run-off cover should be in place for the appropriate duration, depending on whether contracts have been executed underhand or as a deed, and the indemnity should cover for past and present employees, directors and partners. We may also receive a follow-on question checking our understanding on the minimum levels of indemnity and how this is determined. And to address this, we would need to say that this is dependent on the firm's turnover. For example, if the turnover is £100,000 or less, then the level of indemnity to be provided is 250k, whereas if the turnover is between 100 and 200,000, the indemnity is £500,000, whereas if the turnover is above £200,000, then the level of indemnity cover must be provided at £1 million. Another question we may receive in relation to this area is, what are the maximum levels of uninsured excess? And to address this, we would need to say that this is dependent on the level of indemnity being provided. For example, if the levels of indemnity cover are £500,000 or less, then the maximum level uninsured excess must be 2.5% of the insured sum, or £10,000, whereas if the level of indemnity is over £500,000, then the maximum level of uninsured excess is 2.5% of the insured sum. A question that we may receive in relation to CPD requirements is, what is the difference between formal and informal learning? We would need to say that formal learning is either web-based training with structured assessments, formal seminars, and formal training is normally in the form of web-based training with structured assessments, formal seminars, providing training to others where research and preparation is required. And forms of informal CPD include private reading, internal CPDs, shadowing and mentoring of trainees. We may also receive a question checking our understanding of how we are to record CPD and return this to the RICS. And to address this, we could say that there is a portal on the RICS website where CPD can be recorded. There is also an app where CPD can be reported to the RICS, and we must record the type of CPD, the date, subject area, number of hours, along with the learning objectives and outcomes. We may receive a question on our personal CPD strategy, and to address this, we could say that we meet up with management twice a year to review my career development plan and objectives. I then build my CPD strategy around these objectives and focus on current topics and personal interests. We could then give an example of our CPD objectives going forward. We may also receive a question checking our understanding of the difference between ethics and integrity, and to address this, we would need to say that ethics are moral values that affect a person's behaviour or the conducting of an activity, whereas integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. We may also receive a question on our understanding of the minimum CPD requirements for RICS members, and to address this, we would need to say that we would need to record 20 hours of CPD per year. We would need to achieve a minimum of 10 hours formal CPD per year, and we would also need to record CPD relating to RICS professional and ethical standards during a rolling 3-year period. That brings us towards the end of this Q&A practice. Please be sure to like this video if you found this content useful.